So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the 5 lessons I learned from my one-on-one time with Dan Pena. So when you enter into the castle, when you register for the QLA seminar, you get 15 minutes with Dan Pena. Okay, and this is your one-on-one time with him where you can ask any of your questions that you have and he will guide you based on that. It was a 15-minute one-on-one consultation. So I had registered for the seminar, I arrived at the castle and I was sitting in his trophy room where all the animals are there and all his awards are there. And then the secretary just called me and she said, come on, it's your turn. And before that, my brother was inside. So I was just waiting. I was really nervous. I was wearing a 3-piece suit and it felt very weird because I wasn't wearing suits. So I saw him and I was afraid of him, but he was extremely nice. He was like, oh, another Indian, welcome, welcome, how are you doing? And he was super nice to me. And so after making fun of me, he asked me question number 1, and that was the lesson number 1. And he asked me, so what is your goal? And he became quiet. And I said, I want to be a billionaire. And then he said, okay, and what's your idea? That's the second question he asked. Well, my idea is that I want to start a dating consulting company and I want to open up many yoga studios. And within a split second, he said, you're not going to be a billionaire with these 2 ideas. I have got a couple of guys who tried the yoga business. I also had a couple of guys who tried dating. I have a guy who had a big business in dating. But you can make a couple of $1 million, but you can't be a billionaire. And then I went blank because those are the 2 ideas that I had. And then I asked him, what do I do? And he said, go into healthcare. And I had not even heard, I did not have anybody in my family who was into healthcare. I did not have anybody in my family who was into business. Everybody was an employee or self-employed people. And he suddenly dropped this bomb that go into healthcare. And I was like, what? I'm not even passionate about healthcare. I don't know anything about healthcare. And he said, that's the reality of it. Okay, you may or may not be passionate about it, but that's where the money is. So the second lesson that I got is that how much money you're going to make is going to depend on the industry. It's not, until that point, I thought that it's going to be based on passion. Whatever I'm emotional about and passionate about, that's where I'm going to make the most money because that's where I'm going to act most and I'm going to be more focused in all of this. But that paradigm got collapsed when he said that money has to come from some place. It has to come from an ecosystem that's big enough for you to pull out $1 billion for yourself. And probably if you want $1 billion for yourself, you at least need to create a company worth $2, $3, $5 billion, right? And then you can pull out $1 billion for yourself out of the whole ecosystem. And then he said, healthcare has trillions of dollars, so it makes sense for you to be there. And then I said, but what would I do in the healthcare sector? And that was the third lesson, is you're going to be buying businesses. And I said, but I don't know how to buy businesses, and he said, don't worry, you will learn in the coming week how to do it. And then I had so many questions in my mind that, how do I raise money? Where do I raise money? I don't have the money. I think he's assuming that I have money. I don't have any money. I had to borrow money to come to the castle. He doesn't understand. But then I trusted him because he talks about creating wealth from zero. So I trusted him that he would understand that I'm starting off from zero. So I didn't say anything. When he said, you're going to learn it, I said, okay. So lesson number 1 was, get into, what are your goals? Lesson number 2 was get into an industry that is where you can fulfill your goals. And lesson number 3 was buying businesses, okay? So get into healthcare, buy businesses. And then he asked me, you're from India, right? And I said, yes. And he said, it's going to be challenging for you. And I was like, why would he make a statement like this? Why would he make a statement like this? Because this is a personal comment. And what does my personal ethnicity have to do with business? In my head, there was no correlation. And then I asked him, why do you say that? And he said, it's because of your family background. Your family is going to create a problem. And I understand Indian culture. I've lived in India, he said. And I said, but my family is supportive and I don't let them control my life. And what I did not realize at that time is that I allowed my family to control my life, my whole life, that I don't even realize that they're controlling my life. So I was unconscious, but he knew how the culture is structured. And even though I thought he's maybe being stereotypical, but he was right. And there is a reason there are stereotypes. And if you are an Indian, if you're watching this, Indian families are typical. They're very typical. And cultures tend to be typical. And he said, you will have to separate yourself. And I said, okay. And he said, if they don't interfere, if you have drawn that boundary, then it's good, no problem. But he warned me about it. And that's exactly what happened. A couple of months later, I faced a problem with my family. And that directly affected my business, very directly affected my business. So I was like, why would he talk about personal life when it comes to mergers and acquisitions and buying businesses? But personal life affects business life. That's a fact. And you have to confront that fact. Michael Phelps, how much time was he spending with his family when he was preparing for Olympics? I don't think he was spending a lot of time with his family. So it's a sad reality, but it has to be confronted. Then the final point was the market. Okay, where do you want to do it? And I said, I have two ideas, India or Dubai. And he said, India is a tough market. You're better off doing it in Dubai. And that was it. In 15 minutes, all my plans were crushed that I had. And now I was going into healthcare. I was going into mergers and acquisitions, which I had no idea about. And I was going to Dubai, which I had no plans of going. And that was it. And I was like, whoa, this next week is going to be really fun. So those are the 5 lessons that I learned from Dan Pena, my mentor.